Hello YouTube, and welcome to this review of the Doggcrapp Training program. This is probably the program that has been the most requested on this channel. And funnily enough, I had never heard of it in my entire life. So it's the first for me. It was a discovery. I had to actually go look it up. Now, before I start, I actually spent the last 20 minutes looking online trying to find a reputable source so that I could actually review the program, because with previous program reviews, I always have the same issue. No one has sources, and even the people who made the program don't have websites. So I always get the program from some third party, and there's always something missing. Issue is, I actually found the blog of the person who made the program. It was unreadable. So I had to go with something else. And it is truly a sad testimony and a sign of the apocalypse that the one website I found that gave me a good description of the training was Tiger Fitness. So we're in for a wild ride. Elite FTS has an article on it. It felt like I was reading the ramblings of a 14-year-old, so I just couldn't get through it. And for the most part, it's just not succinct, which is not a good sign. A program is supposed to be put on paper and then shared with the rest of the world that can understand it if they have a high level in training and programming. But here, it was always pages and pages and pages of text, which tends to be the sign of an overcomplicated program for no reason. But I don't want to prejudge. We're going to get into it. I sort of have an idea of what I'm dealing with here. So let's review it today. First off, I read that you're supposed to be advanced to do that program. So that already disqualifies 99% of the people on this channel. So I don't know why you are so intent on hearing about it. I don't know if it's just a rumor, but apparently you need to be really advanced to that program. And the first link, the first result was by T-Nation. And the title said that you can gain up to 50 pounds of muscle on this. So you can already know that it's going to be bullshit, of course. Even pro bodybuilders on grams and grams and grams of stuff don't gain 50 pounds of muscle a year. So, as you can see, I'm going in with some apprehension, but I'm going to try and be fair. So, Doggcrapp Training is an hypertrophy-oriented weightlifting approach created by Dante Trudel. This workout style utilizes high intensity, low volume, and high frequency. Okay, so it's basically HIT, but where you actually train more than once a week. So it's already better than HIT and blood and guts. Okay. Okay, talk a lot. It's heavyweights with progressive overload, which is every single good program out there. They use the same lingo to gain muscle and strength. You've got to give your body a reason to grow and repair. Yes, everyone knows that. And it advocates for lower workout volume because it's extremely intense, which intensity without volume is not the end-all be-all. It is most of the time applied by people who misunderstand programming, because when you up volume, you up intensity. The values go hand in hand. So let's see how they do that. But they say that you need to make sure that the relatively low volume of working reps, okay, I read a sentence which is not grammatically correct. Great. So for each exercise, you will perform 3 to 5 sub-maximal effort warm-up. Okay, so warm-up sets. I already sense a pattern here. I see a lot of jargon being utilized when they could just say something much simpler with one word and they utilize 10 instead. I have a tendency to do that, but I still get to judge. Followed by an all-out max effort top working set, comprised of 3 subsets. So apparently you have one top set and then you just do back-off sets, I guess. So it's a pyramid set. At the end of this rest pose, style top, the amount of adjectives, rest pose, style top, working set, you should have no reps left in the tank. Okay, so they have an approach of top set, then pyramiding down with the weight until you cannot crank a rep out. That is a good thing to do for a finisher. It doesn't replace working sets. So if that's what they consider high intensity and high quality volume, they're already wrong. High frequency training of body parts. Although the workout volume is low, the frequency and intensity by which you train a body part is high. High frequency means hitting each body part 2 times every 8 days. So that's what they consider high intensity. That's not high intensity. that's medium intensity. Plus, if you do low volume, that's starting to hinge towards low frequency. I personally train my legs every 2 days. I have body parts I train every 2 days. I have body parts I train every day. They're basically abiding by the idea that a cycle of 4 days, 4 days split is the best. I'm not necessarily saying it's the worst, but it's not high frequency. It's far from being high frequency. Multi-rep rest pause training. Dante Trudeau, which, by the way, amazing name, takes a slightly varied approach. After performing your warm-up sets, select your top working set weight, perform as many repetitions, typically between 7 and 10 as possible until you reach failure, controlling the eccentric of each repetition. So again, a typo, great. I mean, considering the caliber of people who ride for Tiger Fitness, I'm not surprised. And performing each concentric lifting racing portion as explosively as possible. So that's pretty much bodybuilding reps. Slow negative without just being ridiculous and then exploding up. I'll make a video about it. When you explode up, don't let it destroy your form at the top. A lot of people do that where they explode out of the hole on the squat and the bar lifts off of their shoulders. That's poor technique. After you've reached failure, you're not done with the set. Take 10 to 15 deep breaths and then perform the same exercise with the same weight to failure. Okay. So, this approach is not the worst. I'm not going to say it's the worst. That being said, since it's your top set, it's technically strength work. And even in a 7 to 10 rep range, which is high for strength work, it still represents an absolute intensity that is quite high. It might result in a lot of form breakdown, and it might also result in a loss of performance, because this is essentially taking a set and refusing to create clear delimitations of said set, so that when it's supposed to end and you're supposed to rest, you're actually not resting, you're just prepping up for the next iteration of the set. It has its issues. It's much tougher to program, it's much tougher to progress, it's much tougher to track progression as well on this. It is additional volume, but at what cost? Why don't you just wait and rest and do the set again? Because in reality, what do you gain from that? Okay, you gain some time, you lost some tonnage, you lost some progression because you shrunk the strength work. You did technically get those reps in a slightly higher intensity windows because they happened after heavy work, but is it worth it? Because technically what he's doing here is he is cloning the top set. So he can't really claim that there's only one top set. No, the top set has a twin, but it's a twin that is happening in an artificial state of failure. Not a big fan of that approach. And after that, you're still not done yet. Take another 10 to 15 deep reps and perform the same exercise the same way to failure. So in reality, you are doing 3 sets, which is why also I prescribe for strength work. I would tell most people to just do strength work, rest 2 to 3 minutes in between. It is going to be better for performance. It is going to be better for tonnage accumulation. This is a gimmick. This is the type of thing that you can do for the last set of the strength work. Okay, you've done your 3 sets, and for some reason, on that day, you don't want to do a back-off set of the exercise. Okay, do that. Get your last reps, 15 reps, 15 breaths, a few more reps, etc., etc. The issue is that with the way I just prescribed, because you're going to be 3 sets deep into the exercise, you're not going to gain as much additional reps when you do that. And it's also the reason why he has you do only 1 set. It's not really because it is the best for volume or it's the best for hypertrophy. It's because his method wouldn't work if he didn't do that. Because he needs you to be fresh. After your top set of strength work, of high intensity work, you are still fresh. And that's something that the high intensity training crew just doesn't get. 1 top set is not enough, because if I let you rest 2 minutes afterwards and you get back to it, guess what? You can get as many reps or maybe 1 or 2 reps less. So what does that show you? You didn't really hurt your baseline. Your baseline is still there. The muscle is still endurant, which means it's not damaged enough. After that, he says that you don't have to stay under or continue to hold the bar during these deep breathing portions. The purpose is to expand your diaphragm as much as possible so that you maximize oxygen intake. Okay, a fancy way to say that when you take deep breaths, you get more oxygen in your bloodstream, I guess. At the end of this set, comprised of 3 subsets, so it's 3 sets, You should have completed somewhere between 11 and 15 repetitions. If you complete less than 11, then the weight is too heavy. Okay, so at least he gives parameters to follow so that it just doesn't go everywhere with that type of training technique. I would say that the issue here is that you're getting 11 to 15 reps, yes, and that can be a problem because that rep range also represents a decent amount of sandbagging. And in a way, he managed to go around that, meaning that it's an 11 to 15 reps that is still going to happen in a very high intensity window. So that's a good thing. If you complete more than 15 reps, increase the weight by 5 to 15 pounds, depending on the exercise and how many reps you completed. All exercises should be performed in a rest pose manner, except those targeting back thickness, which, what is back thickness? Again, that's bodybuilding lingo. Quadriceps, forearms, and calves. You will target those four muscles groups using straight sets. Okay, I would be curious to see the reasoning behind that. So let's see if he explains that later. Another important part of Doggcrapp training that I've seen online that apparently is very important. Extreme stretching. It's an unconventional approach that is not found in most bodybuilding workouts. The goal of extreme stretching is to expand your fascia, thus increasing the potential for muscles to expand and fill this stretched and expanded space. Okay. So this is great because I actually want to make a video about it, but I can sort of give you a teaser here. This is a gimmick. Rich Piana used to push that, and I love Rich, but he wasn't super sharp when it comes to programming or just training in general. The issue with this is that if you think about it, you stretch the fascia. Afterwards, after you train, how do you stretch it? Let's see how they stretch it. After each exercise, or at the end of the workout, perform extreme stretches that target the muscles you're working that day. Hold this stretch for a total of 30 to 60 seconds and make sure you're trying to flex the target muscle the entire time you're stretching. Don't be afraid to separate this 30 to 60 seconds into multiple intervals of 5 to 10 seconds. Okay. So in which positions do they get when they stretch the muscle? There's a picture of a guy doing a dip here. So at the bottom of the dip, the chest is stretched, okay? At the bottom of the squat, the quads are stretched. At the bottom of the calf raise, the calves are stretched, etc. Which means what? You're already doing extreme stretching when you train. And think about this. Let's say you do a set of 5 with 315 on the squat. And after that, you go into a squat and you stretch the quads. At which point in the training were the quads most stretched and most stressed? With the 315. So you're effectively doing absolutely nothing afterwards. If and only if you didn't go into this deep range of motion, then maybe the stretching can have an impact. But for the most part, what people call fascia stretching is just going for range of motion and taking it slow on the negative and using the stretch reflex at the bottom. That's pretty much that. I'm not saying that this is not a good or bad thing to do. I do it for my calves. But the issue is that when you look at the calves, the reason why extreme stretching works is because they have to hold the weight of the entire body and they're a small muscle. So for something like the quads, for example, it's not going to work. It's not going to work for something like the upper back. It's not going to work for something like the traps because you will have to load. And instead of just stretching, why don't you just train them? Why don't you just do straight sets to get that stretch? It's a sort of my issue. I saw that and I knew it that it was going to be gimmicky. So it's a little bit gimmicky here. And it's funny that they say it's unconventional as if it's a secret technique that no one does. Everyone does that. Everyone who trains does extreme stretching. Okay, I will make a full video about it because it's interesting. There's a lot of myths that pro bodybuilders put forth on the scene, like the pump, growing muscles, and all of that stuff. So I'll make a full video. But after that, he talks about carbs. I'm not going to talk about that. That's diet. Cardiovascular exercise. Okay, great. Dente is a big advocate of low to moderate intensity cardiovascular activity, regardless of whether a trainee is cutting, bulking, or maintaining, okay? The only exception being extreme ectomorphs. Ectomorphs, that doesn't exist. I made a full video about it. Those separations in body types do not exist. You can talk about metabolism, you can talk about leverages, you can talk about the limb length, but there is no such thing as a type of human that is an ectomorph. And then he talks about teenagers too. He doesn't advocate the use of high-intensity interval training techniques. The reason is that they could significantly hinder recovery and negatively affect progressive overload in the weight room. Okay, I would just sum it up by saying that if you are doing lower body exercises in high rep ranges, you are already getting moderately intense cardiovascular activity. And if you're doing giant sets, your cardiovascular system is going to be fine. So I'm not going to take too much time on that. Okay. I said I wouldn't talk about diet, but I have to read this. Dante Trudeau believes that trainees grow best when consuming 2 grams of proteins per pound of body weight. That is way too much protein. Again, it's this hyper-focus on protein consumption that makes no sense. You don't need that much protein to grow at all. He talks about periodization too because he has the delicious dichotomy and semantic application of terminology terms. See, I can also use terms like this too. That he calls blasting and cruising phases, which of course is referring to the steroid habits of some bodybuilders. And that he believes the periodization approach of about 6 to 12 weeks of all-out training followed by 10 to 14 days of maintenance training is optimal. I disagree. Of course, if you watch the channel, you know that I don't like volume day, I don't like intensity days, I don't like deloads, I don't like clear variations of the training because it destroys tonnage stability. And to me, that's the most important thing. There can be some small dips of tonnage that are going to be created by the rep ranges and the evolving rep ranges, but that's it. That's the amount of variation that you can allow yourself. I know some people do disagree, but that's what I believe in. And that's what I do. Also, that's how I train. The goal of DC training is to provide you with an intense hypertrophy-inducing approach that will allow you to make gains year-round. Be forewarned, if you skip the cruising phases or turn the cruising phase into more of a blasting phase, you're going to overtrain. Okay, that's the sign of a poor workout. In my opinion, it's a poor training program. If you're forced to push the trainee into low-intensity waters where he's not really getting challenged because he has to catch up, how long does the body catch up? You can destroy the muscles as much as you want. You're not going to need 10 days to recover from that. What you're recovering from is potentially undue fatigue. So that's an unbalanced program. If you have massive peaks in intensity, understand that these peaks in intensity don't result in more gains. It's the equivalent of thinking that if you eat a massive surplus and then you fast, the massive surplus you ate resulted in more gains. It didn't. It resulted in more fat. Same here. If you go above your maximum recoverable volume for a period of time and then you temper down, guess what? All of that extra volume you did was for nothing. If anything, it hurt your training. And on top of that, it made you fatigued and now you have to recover. It's the reason why, again, I preach tonnage stability and tonnage, not necessarily maintenance, but balance. Okay, now they give a sample. And the sample stipulates that you train 3 days per week using an A-B structure. Each workout is separate by at least 1 rest day, and that you perform each workout roughly twice every 8 days. Okay, so a decent amount of frequency, a decent amount of repetition, which should technically ensure that there is going to be a high level of specificity and neurological adaptation. So let's see if it actually holds its promises or not. For each muscle group, you will perform 3 exercises with 1 top working set for each, which I already described, while you can use isolation movements, ensure they only compromise, what? Why would they compromise anything? They only comprise a small portion of your exercise selection. Dante Trudeau clearly states that there's much more room for progressive overload on a compound lift like the back squat compared to an isolation movement like leg extensions. Yes, that is true. Doesn't mean that you're supposed to ignore the isolation movements though, because just because you can make bigger jumps in weight with the compounds doesn't really mean much, because you have to report that back to the size of the muscles. Yeah, you're going to progress much slower on the bicep curl, but guess why? It's because the bicep is smaller. So the weight, the small plate that you added, is going to, when you look at the body and you bring it all down to the same size, to the same amount of stress and stimulus that would happen if you put 20 pounds on a deadlift. That's very important to get. A lot of people think, oh, I'm progressing slow on an isolation. Yeah, but guess what? The muscle you're working is also small, which also means that a small amount of progression is going to result in size gains. That's something that you need to keep in mind. 3 exercises per muscle group is a little bit small for some muscle groups, especially if you're going to preach compound movements, because compound movements hit a wide variety of muscles. So how do you do that for legs? Squat, deadlift, and then one more, and that's it? No variation? I personally don't like that approach. Please note that if you're unable to perform or do not have the equipment for any of these exercises, there is a substitute that is acceptable, okay? So, workout A, chest, shoulders, triceps, back width, back thickness. That's a very ambitious split. If you refer back to what I personally consider the best type of split, which is the gentleman split, that would be a very big day because chest, shoulders, triceps is already a good day. You can add some lats in there, but I'm sort of suspecting it's not going to be that easy. It's not just going to be a few chin-ups. So, for chest, you have to pick 3 of the following. So they give exercises again, okay? And we'll see why they do that, but they give exercises for the chest. Okay, great. I just want to point out that they put the kneeling landmine press as a chest exercise. That's a shoulder exercise. It's a vertical press. Incline is also not really a chest exercise. I mean, what is going on here? They have dumbbell flies in there, which you cannot use that for your strength work, especially if it becomes the only thing you do for chest. I mean, keep in mind that this is supposed to be the only exercise you do. So you're going to come in, do one top set of chest flies, and you think it's going to grow your chest. If you're on steroids, maybe, but not for naturals. Shoulders, same thing. So let's see what they have. Upright row they have for shoulders, which technically is right, but it's not a press. That's sort of the issue when you are going to have a list of movements like this. It's better to stay within trees of specificity and movement patterns that resemble one another, because this is really just anything that the shoulder is involved in is just thrown at the trainee. And some people don't know better, so they'll do upright rows. And look at the potential in development between the exercises. It doesn't match. Triceps, close grip bench press, which, yes, works the tricep, it mostly works the chest. So for someone who is going to pick, for example, flat bench plus close grip bench, you now have them do 2 exercises for the chest. There's nothing that prescribes someone from doing that. Prevents. See, I'm reading this is making my vocabulary just shrink. Like ice in the sun. Okay. Then they have tricep dips, etc., overhead extensions, which are different heads of the triceps. So there's a lack of specificity here. Back width, pull-ups or chin-ups, great. Narrow or wide grip lat pull-downs or lat pull-downs with a hammer strength. Okay, so see, I was wrong. Back width, they actually use vertical pulls, which is great on a day like this because it actually is easier to recover from. Issue is, after that, back thickness, conventional deadlift. So on one day, you're going to do your horizontal press and a deadlift. Does that sound synergistic to you? It's not at all. Why? You're going to have to warm up 2 completely different portions of the body. So I already don't like that workout A. It lacks synergy. Plus, you're going to be pooped. Like, you're going to do all of your presses and then you're going to finish with a deadlift. Never finish the day with the deadlift. The deadlift is strength work. It's at the start. Workout B. And it's funny too because they do training programs always advertise using pictures of people on steroids for a reason. Workout B, biceps, okay. Forearms, okay. Calves, hamstrings, and quadriceps. So again, not synergistic at all. I highly encourage and want people to do their upper lower splits synergistically. And just an upper lower in general, which means you're not going to train the upper and the lower on the same day. Because might as well just do a full body training day. Okay, so then biceps, forearms, calves. There's not really much to say here. I mean, it's not terrible. This day is actually better than the other, but it's just not the best. And especially with the approach I already detailed, it's just suboptimal. Okay, so that's workout B. Let's see workout C. There's no workout C. So that's it. Why does the article end like this? I don't know. But something I wanted to say is that apparently from what I've seen, you're not supposed to repeat the exercises. So for example, if you do a bench press, you do your bench press, and you're not supposed to redo the exercise in 8 days. And that's terrible because it is going to create a lack of neurological adaptation over time and a lack of specificity. So as you can see, I'm not really super enthused by this program. I had high hopes because everyone wanted me to review it. I don't necessarily know if I reviewed everything people wanted me to review. I think I went through most of what was necessary. I can click on the Elite FTS. Maybe I missed something. The Elite FTS 1. Yeah, no, I think I got it all. If you want a good laugh, click on the first link, the T-Nation article. It literally reads like it was written by some 45-year-old soccer mom who tells her experience with Doggcrapp Training. You know, I've heard people complain that it's impossible to find a recipe on the internet because every time you look, it's some random spinster that tells you her life story for like 55 lines, and then they give the recipe if they do it. Why is it becoming the same for programs? Every time I look for a program, I have to read through a bunch of diaries before I actually get to the program, and sometimes the program isn't even there. So yeah, I'm just going through the T-Nation thing, but I think I pretty much summed it up. Yeah, they have A and B programs, which, by the way, where are the trap exercises? I guess you don't need them when you take steroids. Where is the real delts isolation? Where is the ab isolation? I really don't like this program. And I would encourage you to not do it. You can just go in the free program playlist. I actually have better programs for all levels. If you're advanced, and I'm going to end on that because that's all I have to say, but if you're advanced, you should be programming for yourself. You shouldn't be looking online for a program because you're going to end up following something like this. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Have a good day.